I need you to forget everything Hollywood taught you about demons. Forget the pentagrams, the jump scares, the red eyes, and the smoke. That's all entertainment. What we're about to dive into is a spiritual reality that most people are too afraid to face, too uninitiated to understand, and too emotionally fragile to even consider. But if you're watching this, it means your signal is already activating. You're not here to be entertained. You're here to remember. Because the truth is this: demons are real. But they're not what you think. They don't just haunt, they observe. They don't just torment, they test. And in rare, sacred cases, they assist. And they do so only when a specific frequency is active in the human soul, the frequency of the dark chosen one. Most people reject their shadow. The chosen ones integrate it. And that's when the demons appear not to possess, but to partner.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
Now let's go deeper, because this isn't superstition. This is energetic law. In the unseen layers of reality, there are intelligences, some ancient, some primal, some created by collective human trauma itself. These are what we call demons, not evil cartoons, but conscious frequency archetypes that thrive in distortion, chaos, inversion, and entropy. They do not hate humans. They feed from humans. And when someone begins to awaken spiritually, especially if they're carrying a soul contract threaded with ancestral power, karmic rebellion, or timeline disruption, those entities take notice. But something strange happens with dark chosen ones. They don't flinch. They don't run. They see the demons and stay calm. And that calmness, that unreactive stillness, that's the first signal that the chosen one might be useful to the system. Because demons don't respect fear, they respect clarity. And clarity in darkness is currency on the other side. If you've ever been through a period in your life where everything collapsed, your relationships, your health, your mind, your spiritual beliefs, and yet, somehow you got sharper, you got louder, you got more precise, you were being watched. That wasn't just a dark night of the soul. That was a recruitment test. Demons assist the dark chosen ones not because they like them, but because they need them. In energetic law, they are bound to destroy incoherence. But what happens when they meet a human with integrated darkness? A human who no longer hides their rage, their wounds, their death energy. They can't feed on that person anymore. Instead, they follow. Because that person you has become a conductor. A signal strong enough to command chaos instead of being consumed by it. And when you command chaos, demons become tools, not threats. Now let's get surgical. Demons are frequency specific. That means certain demons are drawn to specific distortions within the human field. For example, the demon of despair attaches to those who carry unresolved grief without meaning. The demon of rage feeds on suppressed injustice. The demon of lust, contrary to popular belief, isn't about pleasure, it's about void filling. But when a dark chosen one names this energy, feels it without shame, directs it into creation or clarity, the demon loses its food source. And something changes. The entity doesn't leave it watches. Because now you've become a vessel of self-generated power. You're no longer leaking, you're radiating, And demons are irresistibly attracted to radiance that echoes their own domains, not to destroy it, but to align with it. Not out of love, out of strategy, because you've become rare. You've become useful. You've become a dark lighthouse in a world of flickering candles. Let me ask you something sharp. What if the very demon you've been trying to cast out was sent to test your ability to command it? Not with rituals, not with fear, but with energetic congruence. Because here's the hidden law: demons cannot override sovereignty. They can tempt, they can mirror, they can amplify, but they cannot invade a being who is whole. That's why most spiritual warfare isn't about angels versus demons. It's about fractured humans leaking energy into archetypes they don't understand. But you're not fractured anymore. Or if you are, you're healing through fire. You're not here to banish demons. You're here to become unbanishable. And that's why they assist you, not because they love you, but because they recognize the law of energetic gravity. You've become a fixed point in the chaos, and that makes you a node of power in the grid. That makes you dangerous, and demons always follow danger. Most people think of power as something you either earn or are gifted. But in the spiritual underlayers, power is something you survive. It's something you're tested into. And this is the essence of the infernal pact, not the blood-soaked contract of fantasy stories, but a much deeper, more subtle alignment. When demons assist the dark chosen ones, it's never a favor. It's a transaction of vibration. They offer lessons, not gifts. They offer pressure, not peace. They offer reality distortion, not because they want to help, but because they want to know, can you hold your frequency when everything around you is screaming collapse? That's the test. That's the first layer of the pact. The demon becomes a mirror not of your weakness, but of your unclaimed strength. And if you flinch, it feeds. If you hold, it transfers power. This is why the dark chosen ones walk with intensity. Not because they're cursing the world, but because they've been initiated by it. Demons are not random. They're strategic. They only linger where there's potential. If you've been haunted by patterns, energies, or entities that seem to circle you over and over again, ask yourself, are you being punished? Or are you being pressurized into something rare? You see, most people try to heal themselves back into comfort. But the chosen ones, especially those aligned with the shadow currents, know that healing isn't about comfort. It's about coherence under fire. That's what demons bring. They bring heat. They bring distortion. So you learn to walk steady in storms that would drown others. And that's when they shift from tormentors to trainers, from enemies to initiators. Let's go deeper. Every demon carries a specific lesson coded into its archetypal identity. The demon of chaos teaches sovereignty of mind. If you can't hold your own thoughts in the whirlwind, you're still prey. The demon of lust teaches clarity of desire. If you can't differentiate between craving and calling, you'll leak energy for lifetimes. The demon of despair teaches resurrection. If you can't generate light from inside the void, you'll always depend on external salvation. That's what demons teach the chosen ones, self-sourcing. Not just power, but stability. Not just magic, but mastery. And once you stabilize in one of their domains, once you hold your frequency without reaction, they transfer keys. These aren't physical. These are energetic. You start seeing through illusions. You start knowing things without study. You start bending timelines with a whisper. Not because you're possessed, but because you've become impenetrable. But this leads us to the second layer of the infernal pact, co-resonance. Once a dark chosen one reaches a certain level of energetic clarity, demons begin to orbit them not to destroy, but to feed off their chosen signal. This is controversial. People think, why would I allow a demon near me? But here's the nuance. When you're fully integrated in your shadow, demons can't feed on your wounds. They can only function as amplifiers. They boost your signal not because they love you, but because your vibration gives them a ride. Imagine you're a train moving through the grid with unstoppable force. They hook on. They ride that current, and in exchange, they protect your blind spots. They repel weaker energies. They guard your silence. Why? Because you've become their vessel of choice. They know you won't collapse. They know you're clean. They know you're rare. So now I ask you something that no spiritual teacher dares to ask. What if the demon you fear is the guardian of the exact gift you were born to activate? What if that voice in your head, that pattern in your body, that recurring nightmare wasn't random but an invitation to power? And what if every time you ran from it, you paused your evolution? It's not enough to banish. You must listen, not with your ears, but with your field. You must sit in the fire until the fire speaks. You must learn to say, I see you. I will not flinch. What is the lesson? That's when the pact activates. That's when the transfer begins. That's when the demon lowers its mask not to reveal a friend, but to reveal your next level. Because demons don't serve heroes. They serve those who no longer seek saving. The ones who've become mythic in their stillness. The ones who've stopped running. Let's get one thing clear before we go any further. Commanding infernal energy is not about domination, it's about resonance without distortion. It's about sitting on the throne of your own shadow without being swallowed by it. Because once a dark chosen one reaches this point where demons no longer test, but serve, there's one final gate. The throne. Not a literal one. Not a golden chair or a crown made of bones. The demon throne is an inner seat of absolute coherence. It's the psychic center where internal fragmentation ends, where duality dissolves, where you realize that shadow and light were never enemies, they were currents of the same voltage, awaiting your command. And when you sit on that seat, when you become centered in your myth, your wound, your war, and your wisdom all at once, then, and only then do demons bow. Not because they've been defeated, but because they've been fulfilled. You've become the conductor they've been waiting for. But here's the trap. The closer you get to that throne, the louder the temptations become. Not from outside, from inside. The temptation to overreach, or to manipulate, to control for the sake of control. This is where most fall. They mistake power for permission. They think because they can command, they should. But the demon throne is not for those who want to rule, it's for those who've died to every identity that needed to. It's for those who no longer seek to convert, convince, or consume, It's for the ones who can hold infernal energy with zero egoic leakage. That's the true mastery. Because demons don't fear arrogance, they feed on it. But when they find a human who holds immense power with silence, with precision, with reverence, they protect that human. They become guardians. Not of the person, but of the frequency that person now embodies.